I had a couple of questions. Something we talked about the other day, you mentioned, was there's a lot of questions amongst Pilates teachers about the rights to Joe's work, kind of, or the feeling that one way of teaching Pilates is more authentic than another way. You mentioned Carola Trier and her way of teaching, which you didn't experience, but other dancers you knew went to her. And you mentioned, well, from my experience, it was passed on to me that Romana was really Joe's protege, that he chose her to carry on his work.
Well, a lot of us assumed that for years, just because of the way
and
that
I don't want to make
has,
assumptions that
just the way that she has embodied the work,
right.
and what her attitude has been. And certainly there's a lot of people out there that worked with Joe, and we weren't there, so who are we to really say what was and what wasn't, or to judge one way or the other?
Yeah.
For me, I just like Romana. I like her personality. I like what she was able to give to me in terms of knowledge. I loved her sense of humor. I loved her joie de vivre, So on all those levels, as a woman, I learned a lot from her, and I got it. That worked for me. For somebody else, it may not have. So there is no sort of prejudice there from my point of view. But something that there is one of the teachers, Javier, and Esperanza. I don't know any last names. There's too many names for me to focus on both. One is enough.
I tell you what, if there's a link, I'll provide it in the description to this interview.
And it's an important link because they just spent the last 6 years doing a lot of research, and they have recently completed a biography on Joe.
Wow.
And it took them 6 years. And
so
they found...
if you're watching and you wanted to find out about where to find this book, there's a link in the description of this interview that you can click on to go right to it.
Awesome. And so the book's recently completed, and in his research, he went back, he found marriage certificate, he found all kinds of things, which may or may not be interesting to people. It has very little to do with the work.
Fascinating to someone like me.
For me, it's fascinating because some of the passages that I've read already just explains the person more, and that explains the work more, the drive, sort of where
Joe
it just deepens the whole thing for me. Some, pennies drop here and there for some things. The barrels. I mean, he worked at a brewery for years, so you get,
wow, he did.
Yeah, he did. So that's what they made the beer in, and it's like, okay, well, he must have went,
I can use this.
I could use that. That'll feel good if you lie over it, or if you do whatever. So there are certain things like that. But at the last conference in Nice, where the book was launched, he doesn't speak English very well. So Daria Shari and I read out different passages of the book. And there were a couple of things that I learned more about that are in this book. And one of the things that really impressed me was that Joe actually did write out a will, which nobody ever admitted to or knew about. And in the will, I don't know if it was legalized or what have you, but he did write something out that was found that said that of all his students, and he had many, and I don't know whether Romana was his favorite or not, and I'm sure he had a lot, but that he trusted her the most to carry out his work for whatever reason. So that is something that he had written and documented. So that's in there. I don't know, I think I asked Javier, I can't remember, but I think he did put a copy of that in the book. And the other thing that I found really fascinating was that when he opened the studio in New York, that he was quite a pioneer on many levels. And one of the things that I found really impressive is in the late 1920s, 1930s, he was the only studio of a kind, so the only gym-like environment that allowed women and blacks to enter.
Wow.
He felt that he did not want to discriminate against anybody. He didn't understand the attitudes of Americans, and he just felt like this was something that everybody should be able to have and experience. And I just thought,
it brings chills.
Go,
such
you
a
know. And so
groundbreaking.
so when we talk about the spirit of the work and everything, you can see why it's in there. Because when you start to read a few of those things, you just go, oh, okay, you might have been a weird guy, because you see some pictures and you just go, whatever. You know, wearing knickers in the snow, and sort of, he might have had an ego, we all do, but he did some pretty special things. He was quite a special person.
Yeah.
So I found that quite inspiring too.
All right.
I thought, how courageous.
Very, incredibly courageous.
Because a lot of the clients he had were, you know, the Joneses and the sort of upper echelons of Manhattan. Manhattan was just really being formed, and they would have been outraged, but he didn't care.
Oh, there's women there, and everyone's almost naked.
There's a black person in the corner.
Yeah.
I'm not going to touch that.
Right.
So, you know, that's pretty bold.
I definitely want to read that.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
There might be some boring parts. I mean, it's a biography, but I think there'll be a lot of great things about the book.
Right. Very cool.
Yeah.
So in that same vein, someone had mentioned to me, or I've seen rumored, that Clara, number one, kept a journal about what happened in the studio daily, and I had never heard about that before, but
Romanis told me that story, I think, and I think Jay Grimes also had a story, and he would do all kinds of crazy things, apparently, and she would keep a journal, so she wrote down all those things, and he wouldn't always remember the things he did. So
as far as exercises go? Wow.
And so she was the one that would either choose to keep them or get rid of them.
Oh, we're going to forget about that.
Yeah, we're going to forget about that one, because we don't want anyone standing on their heads and doing jumps off of them, you know. Or some of the archival photos. I had someone come out to Sydney once who trained here. He was from Utah, and we had this archival book, and we were looking at all these photos. We were like, oh my God, we never saw that. So we played with them.
Wow.
And, you know, there were things like kneeling on the top of the chair with your pelvis in line with your knees and your head on the pedal and your hands behind your back, and you're pushing the pedal down to the ground. Well, you know, nowadays you wouldn't be game to do something like that to someone in case they fell. Your business, your life would be over with all the lawsuits and all the rest. I think people took responsibility for themselves a lot more back then than they do now.
Yeah.
So, but it's actually a great exercise. It's like traction. Like you don't want to fall on your head, so you really pull yourself up. You really resist, and your spine it's like an elastic band. It just opens right up from your head to your tailbone.
Watch out. There's going to be 100 people getting in their window chairs.
Do not try this at home.
Cynthia did not advise it.
Do not try this at home. We did only try it once. Never to be done again, but it was cool.
Yeah. So do you think that the archival pictures and books and videos that you see of Joe, all this stuff, is worthwhile to look at or study?
I think so. I think so. I you know, like I said, there are a few things, you know, over the years that I've played with that I don't keep in the studio, and I don't teach to clients and things because I don't understand them. They haven't been taught to me. I understand some, but I don't understand them all, and I don't really see their relevance for a lot of clients, because it takes years to have the kind of control to do things like that. Because one of the things that teachers today are doing a lot of is that they're holding on to people, and they're supporting them, which is great because they're safe, but there's a really fine line, I believe, to that. You know, people aren't really getting to do the work themselves, and that's why they're not as strong as they used to be.
Right.
So you do need to take the time that it takes to get someone to a level where they have that strength.
Right, instead of just holding them up.
Instead of holding them up all the time. So they can do that stuff.
So
and it doesn't get lost.
And would you say that that's something, I mean, a lot of teachers want to be hands-on, but is hands-on something that's more about giving someone a push and a pull rather than I'm going to hold them?
Yeah, it should be. And just knowing, if you know the work, you know where to be when. It's kind of like dancing with somebody.
Yeah.
You know where to be. You know, if you're dancing on stage and your partner ain't there when you take that jump, he's supposed to catch you. You're in trouble.
Right.
It almost happened to one of my friends in Serenade. Her partner was just distracted by something. She took that arabesque, and they go up, and then they do this dive, and the guy's meant to catch them just before they hit the floor. He forgot.
It wasn't pretty, I guess.
It wasn't pretty, but it's that kind of thing. You know, you have to have a certain sensibility, if you know the work, you know where you need to be when, so that if somebody did need your assistance or they were in danger, or that particular moment of that movement can be dangerous, you're there
to be there for
to protect them, to be there for them.
Or Romana used to use her words, and you do the same. She would say, now, don't make this the last split that you'll do.
Well, if you're not so hands-on, you're forced to try and use your words. And then it becomes more creative, more fun.
Person becomes more self-sufficient, maybe. What would you say are qualities that you appreciate in a good teacher? When you're out traveling around and you see so many teachers all over the world, is there any few things that you could name that kind of come with a good teacher?
All those things we were talking about. Somebody that's intuitive, somebody that has confidence, that embodies the work themselves.
Right? Yeah.
And that doesn't talk so much. Blah, 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 blah. That doesn't like to hear their own voice all the time.
Yeah. This is a big topic that Jay brings up quite a lot.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says
valid.
Parrots.
Yeah.
Parrots, parrots, parrots. Everyone's just singing.
Over and over and over.
Hate that word, by the way. That's one of the words I hate.
Oh, good. Oh, save that. Okay, so one of the things that
I'll use it tomorrow.
Oh,
First lesson,
no.
I'll probably say, no,
One of the things that I have noticed in stories about Joe's studio is that people came in at different times and they got down and they did their workout. And
love that.
Somebody was roaming around, but they either knew their workout by heart and what they were supposed to do, and the exercises that they did after that were for their body that they had learned already from Joe. And they weren't.
Love that.
Yeah, they weren't coddled and no one sat with them the whole lesson and told them what to do, which was something I did love, learning Pilates. But I can also see the huge benefit of becoming independent.
Well, I would imagine that there was light and shade. I would imagine that he did some of that, and then once he had a group of people that knew. You know, my studio operates a lot like that. I have teachers. I have one great guy. He's kind of a family member through an ex-marriage. And he has been apprenticing for almost 12 years now.
Oh, that's great.
He's a performer. So every time he gets close to it, he gets a gig. So it never quite happens. But he really knows the work, and we're all really active in keeping the work alive and together. So you'll get clients coming in, people sort of focusing on them individually and trying to teach them the work and doing things that are great for their bodies to make them better and stronger. And then you'll get a whole group of people around just coming in and doing their own workout and playing with each other. And
so you have that going on.
Yeah, we have that going on to a degree, and it's something I always try to embody in the studio because it keeps the energy. It's so great. I always get really frustrated when clients, that one-on-one thing is really hard because people get really dependent on that, and to the point where, you know, I have a client that's amazing. He's a real personality. Everything he does to the utmost perfection. He's a ballroom dancer. Well, he's a psychologist by trade, but he ballroom dances, and he's a concert pianist, and these are all hobbies, right? And he's brilliant at Pilates. But the minute you turn away to do something, like, he waits.
Okay.
Yeah. He waits. He stops. He waits because he's so used to the dynamic of having that attention. He doesn't do one-on-ones anymore. He works with a partner, so they do duets, and they're great. She's also been coming for many, many years. She's a dancer now. She teaches dance, and it just, I don't blame them. I blame myself for allowing that kind of
I have a feeling it's going to change when you get back this time.
I know.
He's in for it.
If you're watching this, I love you. But, it's just, he's not the only one. He's not as bad as some because he does know the work inside out. He's very good at it. But it's that kind of thing that I don't think is as good for people as having an environment where people can just come in and feel like they could just work out. And fortunately at that studio, there is that feeling.
Yeah, there's someone there.
You get that a bit in New York, but that's really just apprentices and people doing the training. Whereas in Sydney, you've got a mix of apprentices and teachers. I mean, not apprentices and teachers, sorry. Teachers, apprentices, and clients.
People. Right.
And people, because I have clients that have been coming there for so many years now. They're really familiar with the family, and even with colleagues that I have coming out, it's kind of a nice little vibe, and it works really well. I wish things would be more like that. But I think that goes back to people being so cautious, so overly cautious about everything and thinking, I mean, the body's really resilient. People always say what doesn't kill you will make you stronger, and if we died doing that, then I hope you had fun. No. I hope everybody doesn't go out now.
No.
But you know what I mean.
To be said
it has to be fun.
Yeah.
There's a video that I saw that Ramona did. I think she's in Italy.
Yes.
And she recreates that. She's in a studio. She's got someone on every single piece of equipment.
Yes, I've seen this.
Have you seen that?
And they're all working at the same time.
I think about it all the time.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about that. It's like been imprinted in my brain. It's like, what a fabulous thing, And she's just walking around and doing,
complimenting, and encouraging, and yes.
And it's
great.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So much fun. It looks like so much fun.
Yeah, and each person has her spotlight on them for a moment, and that's really, and then they keep going.
Yeah. And then at some point, something might inspire you to bring those three people together and come on the mat for a minute. You know what I mean?
Right.
And just, which is probably what he used to do. He would spot something and go, or see somebody.
Now try this.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, how fun is that?
I mean, it would be hard to run a business solely on that. Times are different. I'm sure it didn't cost $1,000 to $2,000 or $10,000 a week to have a space, or so on and so forth. So all of those things, I think, govern how things have changed.
Yeah. What would you say about, what exactly is Pilates? Is there a specific definition that you think of when, I guess I'm thinking of, there's many blended workouts nowadays that blend Pilates with something else, or
yoga Pilates and stuff like that.
Folks doing Pilates on apparatus that, say, Joe didn't have. What do you think about that trend?
Well, I think, I think whatever works for people works for people. I think just getting people off their seat doing something is a positive thing. Doesn't matter what it is. Even getting them out of the house to go. Because I don't think we're not those kind of people, but there must be tons of people out there that don't even leave their homes, that are really sort of, that sit all the time, that have nothing going on, no circulation, no sort of vibrancy, and so anything is good.
Yes.
It's all good.
It's all good.
But I think that Pilates is Pilates. I used to be much more diplomatic, and now if people ask me that question, I just go, well, there's Pilates and there's other things. And it's as simple as that. There's Pilates, and then there's whatever else you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not that that is worse or better than what Pilates is, but there is Pilates, and that's it. There isn't this Pilates and that.
Yeah.
There just is Pilates.
Right.
right? And like I was saying before, I think the shame about sort of going down all these different roads and having to use things that weren't Pilates, they're good things, but it's confusing because people are not, then the shame of it is that people are not getting the benefit of really experiencing what
the depth
Pilates
of the work
is.
That's
Yes.
true. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how I feel about it. And I'm no longer like, well, you know, it's all good. I just don't think it's Pilates.
So Pilates on a foam roller or a stability ball?
It's a foam roller and stability ball. Like it does X, Y, and Z. Is that good for you or not? Sure it is if it works. But it's not Pilates. Pilates is that and that and that and that and and that's the foam roller and the this.
Yeah.
Is it good? Yeah. I had an injury one time when I was in Seattle. They have this beautiful studio up there, and they have a lot of physical therapists.
You're talking about
and
Lauren
I went
Steffen's
to
studio.
one, and I couldn't. Nothing I was doing was really helping. So I went to one of the physical therapists, and she gave me this whole bunch of exercises on a foam roller, and I was like, that is cool. It was great. But I didn't go, oh, that's Pilates too, or I'm going to take that and turn it into. And if I do choose to use it, I still haven't gotten a foam roller, even though I thought it was fabulous.
Yeah.
And now I forgot the exercises.
Darn it.
But I would introduce it as, this is a foam roller, and this is something that was given to me by a physical therapist, and it felt really good, and these are a series of exercises that
helped me
do
with
X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
I wouldn't be like, well,
this is Pilates.
This is Pilates, because it's in my room.
Yeah. Right.
I don't get what that's about.
Right.
Did I?
I like you answered that beautifully. You sure did. Oh, this is a nice question I wanted to ask you. So, if you, for some reason, had to stop teaching tomorrow or chose to stop teaching tomorrow, do you feel confident that what you've learned from all these years of teaching and from Romana and that's been passed to you, because you really are entrusted in a huge way as one of the top representatives of Romana's company, as someone who knows her work and understands it, do you feel like there's people who you've taught it to?
That is such a great question.
Right? Gosh, it really kind of
it's such a
humbles
great,
you.
Because this morning when I was in the mirror after my shower, putting on my moisturizer and doing my thing, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about the next generation.
Yeah.
I was really, that is something that we need to really not think about. I think that if you think about it too much and you try to look for it, then you're going to miss the right path, right? You're gonna try to embody it in somebody or pass
put it on to someone, yeah.
But I think that it's something that we really need to be sensitive to, and find just through that sensitivity. I think that there are people out there, and we need to be open to that, because I'm getting tired, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And it's not something I think I'll ever stop doing. I just think I'd go crazy. It's certainly, I mean, I'd love to have a break so that I could become a client for a while, because at the moment I'm so busy that you know, I can, like on one of these, at home I can manage a little bit of a schedule for myself, but on these trips, I just fall apart because I just don't have the time to be looked after myself. So I probably will never really stop teaching per se, but that doesn't mean that there aren't people out there that should step into the role of continuing on that spirit and knowledge. Yeah.
It's truly a legacy that
it is.
It's everything you've talked about.
It's somebody that embodies. And so you're going to stumble on it, but you have to be open to that. Yeah. Right? You have to.
And then not try to put it on them.
No.
Just let it happen, I guess. Yeah.
Absolutely. You'll know, you'll see it, just in the same way I think that Ramana did, because when I look at how she went down this path and the people that she never said, you're this, or you're going to do that, or I'm going to train you to do that. That was never part of the parcel. She just knew. And for years I tried to look at those people that she trusted, and I try to see the common link. And sometimes I do, you know, I mean, we change and we get influenced by things, and we get tired, we get bitter, we get, you know, all sorts of things sort of come and go through life. But I could see where she was on about. I could see what why she chose people. But yeah.
Can you, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but are there people you could name that you see that either have a history of understanding what the work is, or
I meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
In a lot of different continents.
Yeah.
And throughout, yeah, there are a few people I think that I've come across that I feel that in. But why I was thinking about it this morning is that I'm so busy that it's not something I've been focused on.
Right.
And that's why it's such a great question, because it's something that I need to be focused on. Should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are those people out there. And it's not just people who do good and who, you know what the push through is, and who know that the hand should be on the bar and all of that nonsense. It's people who embody the spirit and the life and the essence, the true, you know, and who have a certain level of integrity that are not going to go off. See, there's a difference between being creative and doing things, sort of evolving the work and doing things that are fun, and that's cool. I enjoyed that too. I enjoy being in those workshops and stuff. I find them joyous. But there's a difference between that and somebody who doesn't need to do anything. Do you know what I mean? Who's comfortable enough, who just takes the package and carries it through.
Right.
Who doesn't need to
evolve it into something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That really just, I mean, you're going to evolve because people evolve, you know, like now I notice everybody's necks are like that because we're all walking down the street sort of playing with our iPod,
getting
our
run over by trucks.
Getting run, it's like, oh shit, the light's red. But, you know, and so the work sort of evolves because of those things. You know, you're going to do certain things with people. But the work is still intact. And that's a hard thing to do because people get bored. It's very difficult to never make the work about you.
Yeah, that's so true.
And very few people have that.
Yeah. It's always about everything
Something.
Except you.
Yeah, it should be. So yeah, that needs to be a focus.
Do you see that there are teachers still within Ramana's Pilates, and I should name them, Shari and Juanita and yourself, and that are real embodiments? Do you feel that they each have something special to give?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. Well, that's kind of a strange question because I go, you know, and you mentioned me in that kind of sense.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it's a bit.
But you all have something different and yet all similar. Different.
But you know, Jay told me a story once. Where were we? I think we were in New Orleans. And he came in and we were all sitting at dinner, and he said that when he was toward the very end, there John Winters, there was Ramana, there was Clara, there was Joe, and there was another woman teaching. He was a student. There was a woman teaching there as well. I don't remember her name.
Not Hannah.
Mary?
Mary Pilates, the niece?
No. Can't remember. Maybe it was Corolla, I don't know. I think Corolla was gone by then. But he said, I mean, they were all so different. And he said to the point where Joe couldn't even stand the way, I mean, some people would come in to teach and Joe would just take off, you know, like he was just like, and that what was remarkable about it, though, was that even though they were all so different in their styles and their approach, you know, Romana was the mover and this person was the perfectionist and so on and so forth, what they all had that was a common thread was the intent of the work. And he said they all shared that. So the intention of the work, that's it before, you know, it's like the genius of the work, the simplicity of it, the anatomy, you know, just being able to intuitively see that through the work and know just where to put somebody, just what to say, just how to place your hand, that they all shared. Even though their styles and what they focused on was different because they all came from different backgrounds.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I've heard many stories of that, about all the different teachers, and the ones I've studied with, I've felt that same strength throughout all of them. It's great. Oh, here's a nice question that I know is really going to apply to a lot of people. How would you advise somebody new to Pilates, because it's so marketed and so on every corner nowadays, and people say, oh, it's that stretching thing, and when I have someone in an elevator ask me what I do, it's like, oh, isn't that like yoga?
Yeah, I know. People say, what do you do? And you go, I'm a Pilates teacher. Because they don't understand how much work it is. And, you know, so they think, oh, right, you work in a gym, you know.
But if they come,
then
they
so
know.
much more than that.
It really
is.
And
most people just don't get it. So
how, beyond describing what you do, how would you tell someone brand new to Pilates to start? Like, how do you get it in your body? How many times a week should you do it? Where should you go? What should you do?
I don't dictate any of that to people, first of all, because it just doesn't seem... I let people make their own choice.
Right.
But the good thing to do, how do you get somebody, just offer them a free lesson. Nice. Just say, come down, you know, and
try it out.
I'll give you a stretch, and I'll make, you know, it'll feel great. Whatever gets them in the door. And the word free usually helps. And then teach the lesson of your life if that's what you're trying to do. You know, if you're trying to really get this person roped in because you know it'll be really beneficial for them. Right. Then whatever. But it is a hard thing to explain to people because the market is so saturated and it's not well promoted. Yeah. Or it's not accurately promoted. Right. So it's a really difficult thing to do. And I'd say, you know, just if you're new starting out, offer free lessons. I started out, my lessons were like $20 a pop. I had so many clients because it was so cheap. And even right up until like, you know, oh God, I think it was 2 months ago, this girl that's working for me, she was like, seriously, Cynthia, you need to raise start charging more. Wasn't $20 anymore, but still, you know, I have people I've trained that are charging much more than I was for my services. Sounds like we all need to come visit in Sydney. Well, there are lots of reasons. Cheap, but it's cheaper than others, you know. I just think, and the reason for that, like if it was up to me, I'd still be giving it away for free because I just always have a problem with that. Because I know how good it is and how it makes people feel. That I think everyone should have it. And so when it comes to the question of money and making it inaccessible, it's a problem for me. Yeah, for sure. So I'd like to end our interview with one last question, which is, we could go on all night. I know. But the question I have is, I have two questions. Okay, sorry, one more. Do you have a preference for, I know, do you have a preference for apparatus? Because I'll just stop there. Do you? I have different preferences. I love the reformer. because I just do, because it's
Well,
like,
I should say brand of apparatus.
Gratz.
We'll talk about that in a, okay. And is there a reason
And,
why?
Yeah, because it works with the exercises. There's all kinds of different apparatus out there, and I've tried them. You know, I've gone to studios where you know, they were maybe grandfathering into where they were teachers and they were relearning the work, and so I've had to be creative and use the apparatus that they had, and you know, I've had to use bits and pieces to accommodate the dimensions that are of these apparatus in order to fit the exercise, because using these exercises or teaching them these exercises on that apparatus and trying it myself, like for instance the knee stretches, the shoulder blocks don't come up high enough, so then your heels are off and you're pushing with your toes, which puts stress on your knees. So it doesn't work. It doesn't give you the same feeling. Also, lighter springs. If you start someone out with really light springs, then they're going to grip their legs to control the movement of the apparatus, as opposed to what people think, that it's harder to work on hard springs. Yeah, it is. But it forces you to anchor your body down, so you're more likely to get the assistance you need to develop strength in your powerhouse, right? So it focuses more on the center. So there's all of those little things that, you know, and then there are some companies that just make it really cheaply. I have my favorite reformer back in the studio I've had for 22 years.
Yeah.
And the only thing I've changed is the vinyl and the springs and the straps, because they get really stretched, and so I cut them back and
shorten them until they're completely
yeah, they
trashed.
last forever and ever and ever, and they just feel better with the body of work that we're doing.
Yes. Okay. So there's that question. So now really the final question. Sorry.
Without sort of, you know, killing business for other manufacturers, if you're doing this work, then I do like this equipment.
Okay, so that's honest. That's fine. The final question I have today is, what do you see for the future of Pilates? Where do you see Pilates going? What would you hope to see Pilates?
I would hope to see us, those people that are in a position of responsibility, passing it down to the right people. Really opening ourselves up to that and passing it down and keeping it alive. I'd like to see less hands-on, less talk, and more action.
More action.
More action.
I like it. That's a great theme. All right. Thank you so much, Cynthia Lochard.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Trish Garland, Pilates in Sherman Oaks. And we'll see you soon.